This is the Benelux Union, a union of countries within another larger union of countries within the continent of Europe. Comprising of 3 nations, the Benelux Union is an actual union with its own interparliamentary council and treaties. But why did this group of nations form a union in the first place? Why is it important? And how does its economic weight rank alongside that of much larger, more populous nations? In order to find out the answers to those questions, we must first look at the history. Welcome to the Benelux Union Explained. So let's start with the basics. The Benelux Union is a union between the 3 nations of the Netherlands, Belgium and Luxembourg. All 3 are quite conveniently located next to one another at the heart of the dense and economically hyperactive part of Western Europe. The union dates back to 1944, when the 3 countries set up a customs union under the London Customs Convention Treaty, although it's worth pointing out that Belgium and Luxembourg formally were part of their own union as of 1921. Anyway, from this point onwards, cooperation between the nations was constantly growing, made easier by the fact that Europe had decided to stop tearing itself apart. Hey, who knew that political stability made international cooperation easier? Anyway, by 1955, the Interparliamentary Consultative Council, more often referred to as the Benelux Parliament, had been created, swiftly followed by a treaty signed 3 years later, formally establishing the Benelux Economic Union. This economic union is pretty symbolic, since after becoming operational in 1960, it became the first completely free international labour market, and since then it has pushed for closer economic and social integration with regards to welfare policies and all-round standardization of things, including transport and postal rates, which in turn brought extra freedom to the union's citizens and companies, as the union promoted the movement of goods, capital, workers and services within the union's internal borders, allowing for the custom union's primary objective to be achieved, to enable greater regional prosperity. Now, from this point onwards, the Benelux Union's members had been cooperating in a much larger, fancier union, which would later be known as the European Union. And as a result, much of the further integration that most likely would have taken place under the Benelux Union instead took place under the European Economic Community, and later the European Union. That said, there have been some more recent developments of extra cooperation between the Benelux Union, such as the automatic recognition of higher education degrees, and the Treaty of Liège, which allows transport inspectors to carry out joint inspections on trucks and buses within all 3 nations, saving costs and harmonizing controls. So, apart from being somewhat of a testing ground for potential future EU policies, as well as a small union of highly developed nations, where does the Benelux Union rank in terms of its economic capabilities? What keeps its citizens wealthy and its economy humming? Today, the Benelux Union is home to just over 29 million inhabitants, with the majority calling the Netherlands their home. These 29 million citizens are densely packed into a very small slither of Europe, 75,000 kilometers squared in size, comparable to Panama, the Czech Republic, and South Carolina. However, despite its small size, the Benelux Union has an economic output larger than Spain and Australia, and is not that far behind South Korea and Russia. In fact, on a per capita basis, the Benelux region would be comparable to Sweden, and with the exception of Little Luxembourg, the remaining 2 members have similar levels of per capita GDP. But its economic output is not the only area in which the Benelux Union ranks highly. Each member of the Union ranks relatively low with regards to its Gini coefficient, and in the inequality-adjusted version of the Human Development Index, every member ranks higher than the USA, France and Singapore. These impressive data of the Benelux region today don't stop with carefully calculated figures from think tanks and organizations, although realizing that all 3 countries are ranked in the global top 10 for average monthly wages by the UNECE is kind of a big flex. So what is it then that allows the Benelux Union to be more than just some flat lowlands at the heart of Western Europe? What does the Union excel in? To those of you who are not familiar with the geography of the old continent, it's worth highlighting a few points of significant geographical importance. The first of which is the River Rhine. Now, this long squiggly river runs right through much of Western Europe, connecting various cities in multiple countries, including the very industrious region of North Rhine-Westphalia in Germany, which in and of itself is home to nearly 18 million people and an economy 3 times larger than Vietnam's. So, where does this river connect with the wider world, I hear you ask? Well, that would be via the Netherlands. And this, in part, explains the location of Europe's 2 largest ports, the port of Rotterdam, located in the Netherlands along the Rhine, and the port of Antwerp, located in Belgium, connected to the extensive canal infrastructure in Western Europe, which also happens to just be a 1 hour's car journey away from Rotterdam, so once again, near the Rhine. In fact, out of the EU's top 10 busiest ports by freight, Rotterdam and Antwerp combined are responsible for more freight than the 8 remaining ports in the top 10 combined. And to top it off, even another Dutch port ranks in the top 5. But the Benelux Union's position as a vital logistics hub for Europe doesn't stop at just the waterways, which takes us to the second geographical point of significant importance: Western Europe's population density. Now, known as one of the most industrious regions of the world, the section of Western Europe, which includes much of the Benelux Union as well as the Western German states, is also home to a lot of people. In fact, within 300 kilometers of Brussels live more than 73 million people, and excluding nations of less than 1 million inhabitants, the Netherlands and Belgium rank 10th and 15th globally for population density, meaning a lot of people in little space. This density has been taken advantage of by the Dutch, whose Schiphol airport serves as an international hub for the region as a whole, in passenger numbers, aircraft movements, cargo traffic, and international passenger traffic. So, okay, we get it. The Benelux Union is a logistics hub for a wealthy part of the world, and its ports, both sea and air, are impressive pieces of infrastructure that allow the Netherlands and Belgium to be major exporting powers. I mean, it's crazy to think that Belgium exports more than Brazil. But anyway, despite all these rather impressive things about the nations that comprise the Union, perhaps you're wondering what the Union does today, and is it really that important? Despite seeming in many ways to have been made effectively redundant by the treaties of the EU, the Benelux Union is still very much alive and functioning. As mentioned earlier, the Benelux Union has its own parliament, which consists of 49 members, 21 from Belgium, 21 from the Netherlands, and 7 from Luxembourg. The seat of the parliament itself rotates between the cities of Brussels, The Hague, and Luxembourg, although the Secretariat of the Benelux Parliament itself is located in Brussels. And it doesn't stop there. The Union also has its own Court of Justice and Organisation for Intellectual Property. Now, although the Benelux Union may just seem like a union of super best friend countries, it serves as an important example in analysing how to integrate nations to form closer bonds and the impacts such integration has on the state and greater society. With not just the EU keeping an eye on developments in the Benelux Union, but also other large unions and groups of countries like ASEAN and the African Union, and many, many more. And therefore, in a way, it is a uniquely important union that doesn't yield an excessive amount of power, but instead teaches the world how to unify a linguistically diverse land home to multiple peoples in the modern world. The Benelux Union, then, is like a blueprint for other groups of countries around the world. It provides valuable real-world examples of nations that collaborate in a range of sectors, allowing us all to learn from its successes and failures. This multinational collaboration, along with its forward thinking in order to make the most of its location, are 2 reasons that have led to the quality of life of its residents to rank among the highest in the world. And despite the EU having become increasingly more integrated over time, the Benelux Union has proven that smaller unions still have a role to play in today's interconnected world. Hi everyone, if you made it this far in the video, please comment the flag of the country that you live in. We'd love to see how international our community really is. If you enjoyed this video, hit the like and subscribe button and share it with your friends. If you're from a Benelux country, let us know what your opinion is about the Union. We'd love to hear from you. Otherwise, take care. Bye.